Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something absolutely fascinating. We are decoding the QHIYA spatial grid, which is the meticulously engineered, perfectly logical address system of Varavya. If you've ever been completely frustrated trying to find a building in a sprawling city just because the street numbers seem totally random, well, you are really going to appreciate the absolute brilliance of this system. Because Varavya didn't just inherit some messy urban sprawl. No, they designed a citywide address grid with incredible, future-proof foresight. To show you exactly what I mean, imagine getting an invitation to this complex, chaotic-looking billionaire address, 88 Navarra Ridge, NVR-06-88. I mean, your first thought might be, how does anyone navigate what looks like pure alphabet soup? But stick with me. By the end of our time together today, you're going to be able to read this exactly like a local, and you'll see why this string of letters and numbers is actually the most beautifully efficient way to organize a massive city.
Okay, let's dive into this. We are going to map out our journey in 5 steps. The master plan, the macro level, the street level, vertical and special addresses, and wrapping up with a final decode.
Part 1. The Master Plan. So the real magic of Varavya is the massive contrast between its architecturally wild skyline and the rigidly organized mathematical grid lying right beneath it. The entire logic of the city begins at one specific spot called QHIYA Point Zero. Think of this as a ceremonial marker in the monumental civic core. Now, this isn't necessarily the geographic center of the city, but it is the absolute legal anchor for all spatial measurement. From this exact point, surveyors measure the capital outward along 4 main axes: north, east, south, and west. Then they divide it up even further into 8 directional fields by adding the diagonals. Major avenues follow these axes and secondary streets fill in the rest of the grid. It's like a giant, perfectly organized compass. To actually navigate this massive grid, the city uses a brilliantly simple 5-layer hierarchy known as the QCI spatial grid, or QSG. It goes district, sector, corridor, property number, and unit. Because of these 5 distinct steps, the capital never has to rely on one massive, super confusing sequence of street numbers spanning from one end of the city to the other. Section 2. The macro level, covering districts and sectors. These first 2 steps are absolutely crucial because they instantly narrow down your search on a massive scale. Every major district gets a permanent 2- or 3-letter code, so immediately you know the vibe of where you're going. CVH means you're heading to the government core. SK is the Skyline District. CVH, that's Valara Heights, so you're entering the old money estates. NVR takes you out to the newer billionaire villas of New Varavwa Ridge. Literally just a few letters give you immense spatial and social context before you even look for a street. Once you have the district, the system breaks it down into numbered sectors that radiate outward from the district's center, and this creates a kind of real estate shorthand. If you are in SK01, you are in prime central skyline territory, but SK12, you're pushed farther out toward the perimeter. Because of this, if someone casually mentions they bought an SK02 penthouse, they don't even need to drop a street name. Everyone just instantly knows that is a seriously prestigious address. Moving right along to part 3, the street level. Okay, so we've narrowed it down to a specific sector. Now we need to find the actual building. And Varavya doesn't just call everything a street. They use very strict terminology. The road suffix instantly communicates the exact kind of environment you're stepping into. Grandways are those massive 8 to 14-lane monumental boulevards. Passages are narrow pedestrian-only streets. And if you hear Crown Road, like Valera Crown Road, well, that just sounds inherently important, doesn't it? That's because it means you are on a highly prestigious estate corridor. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the pure logic behind the actual property numbers. They use distance addressing. So if your address is 120 Chiara Avenue, that number 120 literally tells you the entrance is exactly 1.2 kilometers from the road's origin point. Address 684, you're going roughly 6.84 kilometers. It's totally foolproof. This means you can navigate this city even if your GPS completely dies on you. Plus, odd numbers are always on the left side when heading away from the origin, and even numbers are on the right. Though, honestly, Varvian kids probably learn that odd and even rule in elementary school, and then completely forget it until the second they start learning how to drive. Section 4. Vertical and special addresses. Now, a perfectly engineered system is only as good as how it handles exceptions. And this city has massive estates and 100-story mega towers to deal with. For sprawling villa belts, conventional numbering is kind of useless, so they use parcel addresses. A main residence gets an A, a guest villa gets a B, staff gets C, and so on. But for skyscrapers, the system gets wonderfully obsessive. It treats the tower as a vertically stacked parcel, so a code like T1L118PH1 instantly tells you you're going to Tower 1, Level 118, Penthouse 1. Then there are the highly sensitive special zones. In diplomatic areas like Javara Gardens, security is everything. So they actually mask the exact secure public coordinates using ceremonial embassy addresses instead. Meanwhile, the historic quarter is full of ancient, irregular streets that completely defy any sort of mathematical grid. Which brings us to a core philosophy of Vidovravian urban planning. Modernize the navigation, not the heritage. Planners don't just bulldoze a beautiful, ancient historic street simply because they suddenly discovered rectangles. Instead, those irregular streets keep their traditional names, but get assigned a modern historic quarter grid code. It's the perfect blend of preserving history while making sure emergency services can actually find you.
Let's move to and see how this builds into part 5, the final decode. We've looked at all the layers, so let's finally decode that outrageous billionaire address from our hook, 88 Navara Ridge, NVR 0608. See, 88 Navara Ridge is just the public address, but that alphanumeric code, that is the true coordinate. NVR tells us it's the new Vravia Ridge district. 06 means it's in the 6th planning sector, and 088 is the exact estate parcel. What started as alphabet soup is actually a perfectly clean pinpoint location. The absolute beauty of this logic is how instantly it works. On the left, we clearly have an estate parcel, but compare that to 1500 QHIYA Granway SK01 T2-L96-R01. Without even thinking, you know you are 15 kilometers down a massive boulevard in the prime Skyline district, and you are taking an elevator 96 floors up to Residence 1. The whole matrix just clicks together flawlessly. This QHIYA spatial grid is a system that gives a capital city room to grow for centuries without ever becoming a confusing mess. It handles ancient alleys and massive megatowers with the exact same logic. So I'll leave you with this to ponder today. As you navigate the dead ends, the winding streets, and the totally random house numbers of your own hometown, how would your own city look, feel, and function if it had been built from the ground up with this much invisible, meticulous foresight?